Hello and welcome to a special episode of iBuzz. In today's episode, we will discuss the newly released trailer of Spider-Man No Way Home. Spider-Man No Way Home is an upcoming American superhero film based on the Marvel Comics character Spider-Man, co-produced by Columbia Pictures and Marvel Studios. All set to release in December this year, the trailer of the movie is already out. And so in today's episode, we will discuss the trailer with TV presenter Jean-Paul. Jean, welcome.
Welcome. Thank you so much for having me, Nosheen. Lovely to see you.
And thank you for joining us.
This. Yeah, thank you. Thank you for having me on this spectacular Spider-Man special.
Yes. Lots of predictions, goosebumps, and speculations about the new trailer. How do you analyze that?
Oh, I mean, where do you start? I mean, the trailer itself was pretty packed with a lot of stuff. I've got my own secret prediction.
Okay.
Would you like to hear it?
Sure, why not? We're waiting.
Well, if you have a careful look at the trailer, the most poignant thing in there, I think, and this is just a speculation, but it's my Jean-Paul tip, if you like.
Okay.
What you saw was Doc Ock, who came out of the 2004 movie with Tobey Maguire.
Yes.
And he saw Spider-Man and he said, "Hello, Peter," right?
Yes.
But the speculation is that because Doctor Strange has messed up time and he's opened up the multiverse,
right?
Doc Ock has come out and he's met Spider-Man. But Doc Ock is from the 2004 movie with Tobey Maguire.
The different Spider-Man, yep.
Right. So Doc Ock doesn't know the Spider-Man. He doesn't recognize the Spider-Man of today.
Right. That's interesting.
So for him to say, "Hello, Peter," which Peter must he be looking at in that trailer for him to say, "Hello, Peter"? So my speculation is that just for the trailer, they've docked out the Tobey Maguire face and put in Tom Holland's face, but in the movie, I think you're going to see Tobey Maguire.
Right. According to your Instagram poll last night, we're not talking about all Spider-Man heroes here, but can we talk about all villains, all their potential appearance? We already saw Dr. Octavius, we spoke about him. Do we expect Goblin as well? Because there was a clue given by Goblin's appearance as well.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, Goblin's the obvious one because, we actually saw the Green Goblin's presence in the trailer. So you saw his bombs, if you like, and we know what they look like from Green Goblin. But there was also a kind of trickery from the Electro. You saw Electro, the sparkles of Electro as well. And there was also a backdrop of the Sandman.
Okay, so Jean, now that Peter's identity has been revealed, do you think that there would be any charm left for the character? And do you think that there still is required to have more sequels of Spider-Man?
Yeah, I mean, I think the thing is, if you look at this movie, his identity has been revealed, but that revelation doesn't last long because Doctor Strange gets in there and wipes everybody's minds of the knowledge that he is Peter Parker. So definitely, I think going forwards, he's still going to have that anonymity. People will not know who he is as Spider-Man.
Right. And Tony Stark will not be seen in this movie. Do you think Doctor Strange would do the job easily by replacing him? Can he actually be seen as a replacement for Tony Stark?
That's a very good question. I think if you look at Benedict Cumberbatch, he is a very strong actor.
Yeah.
He does have a lot of presence. And I think the fact it's actually a good question because I asked myself that same question. Without Iron Man, does the MCU series still stand up? And I've got to say, Doctor Strange is going to do a fantastic job because he's got a lot of presence, and there's also a lot of. He's a bit like an elder now.
Yeah.
He's got quite a lot of presence, and in that series, he's now one of the more mature characters who's taking care of the Time Stone for the universe. So I think that he really does have that. He was definitely more mature than Tony Stark anyway. You'd rather have him in charge of the planet than Tony Stark, to be honest. Tony Stark is a bit dangerous.
Exactly. But now that there is no Tony Stark, which there is nobody to keep Peter at bay. So does that mean that Doctor Strange has the potential to do that, to keep Peter from making more blunders, or he would just, leave him on his own and do his own job?
Well, the thing is, you would like to think that. You would like to think that maybe with Doctor Strange there, maybe he can keep Peter in order. But Doctor Strange messes up in this movie, Nosheen. He messes up because he's supposed to just erase people's minds, and he ends up opening up a multiverse by mistake. That's Doctor Strange's mistake.
Absolutely.
So how much can we trust Doctor Strange?
Right. But the concept of multiverse is no news. Still, it remains a bit of a mystery to many of the viewers to date. So now that you've mentioned it, I would like you to throw some light on that.
Right, so the multiverse is very similar to the animation which came out a couple of years ago, where you could have a number of different Spider-Men. So I think it was about 5, 6, 7 different Spider-Men in different universes. We've basically got this parallel universe going on. So if there's 5 different parallel universes, there's 5 Nosheens right now, all living different lives somewhere in different universes. So there's Nosheen here, where you are, a fantastic presenter and host. There's a Nosheen somewhere else where you could be the president of America. Okay. There's a Nosheen somewhere else where you could be a housewife.
Okay, that's a nightmare, but yeah, I'll continue with that.
And it's the same thing we've got with the Spider-Man. So, having all this multiverse means that in each different universe, there's Spider-Man, a different element, a different type of Spider-Man, a different character Spider-Man doing different things. There could be a very bad Spider-Man in one of these multiverses. That remains to be seen.
Venom coming up.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So, okay, so that was a great description. The trailer got released. In fact, it was leaked. So would you call it a conspiracy or a fact? What is your take on the whole situation? I mean, it was the news of the town just 2 weeks ago that the trailer got released before its date. So would you call it a conspiracy, a publicity stunt, or this was a fact that, there was a blunder from the filmmakers' end? How would you describe that?
Do you know what? It's a difficult one to comment because a lot of things do get leaked genuinely, and a lot of things get leaked on purpose. I think we've all been really dying to see this trailer and the film for a long time. There was a trailer which was released about 2 months ago, which was a fake trailer. It got absolutely trolled on the internet. Everybody was watching it thinking it was the real one, and it wasn't. So we've all been dying to see this. What I think has been released accidentally is there's some pictures which were released via Twitter of looks like Andrew Garfield and Tobey Maguire in a studio dressed up as Spider-Man. Now that they tried to pull from the platform because it wasn't an official release, but it looks that's why those two guys look like they are back in the Spider-Man movie. And that would be really amazing because Tobey Maguire was not a very popular guy on set. People didn't like to work with Tobey Maguire. He was awful to work with. Yeah. And Andrew Garfield got sacked by Sony. So to have those two back again in Spider-Man costumes, you sort of think, why and how? So it begs a lot of questions.
Right. Jean, looking at the trailer, Peter's friends seem a little skeptical with his identity reveal, as if they no longer feel safe. What do you think of that?
Yeah, I think they no longer feel safe with Peter because Spider-Man gets a really bad story behind him on this. He gets a really bad rap. You got to remember that Jameson, the newspaper editor, has been saying for ages that, Mysterio, he now says Mysterio was killed by Spider-Man. So everyone's, oh my God, because Mysterio was the hero. And now they're saying Peter is Spider-Man. So everyone's like, well, therefore Peter must have killed Mysterio, and therefore they can't trust Peter. So Peter's going to have a really hard time in this film, very hard time from his friends, maybe from his Aunt May, from society. He's going to have a really hard time. That's why he goes to Doctor Strange.
Right. And Jean, do you think that this is a message given to the fans that everybody is coming into this movie, everybody is going to be shown, whether they're the villains or the heroes? This is going to be a wrap for Spider-Man. So do you think this is possible?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, you know, when you look at the characters here, you know, we've lost, because we had Infinity games and we had, Infinity War and Endgames. You know, there's been a real peak in this MCU series 2 years ago. So I think what they're trying to do now with the Marvel film is to bring you something that's really packed with as much entertainment, history, a real explosion in this particular film. So I think it's one that everyone's sort of like, Corona's come along and dampened things down. I think they want to kick off the new season post-Corona by saying, listen, this is where we're going now with pure excitement, all the characters, Electro, we've got loads of Spider-Men, we've got Electro, we've got Sandman, we've got Green Goblin, and whoever else is in there. I think it's going to be an amazing film.
Right. Jean, it was great discussing this trailer and, of course, your predictions about the movie. Thank you very much indeed for joining us.
Thank you for having me, and I hope my predictions come true. Don't want to let me say, I don't want to let you down.
They were very interesting. They were very interesting. So I'm looking forward to the release of the movie, so that once again we can, sit down and discuss post-release all the events.
Look forward to that.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. Have a lovely day.
Thank you very much for joining us. Thank you. That was Jean-Paul with his predictions for the latest released trailer of Spider-Man No Way Home. We will be right back after a quick short break. Stay tuned. And we're back with a review on Sound of Metal. A heavy metal drummer's life is thrown into free fall when he begins to lose his hearing. The movie got 2 nominations for Best Actor in Leading Role and Best Picture. To review the movie, we're joined by critic Van Connor. Van, welcome to the show.
Hi, Nashim. Pleasure. And a great movie, too.
Exactly. A touching story that feels so realistic when you watch and hear it, especially through Ruben's character. How would you analyze that?
I think it's an interesting film. It's been coming for a long time, but it's strange how fitting and contemporary it feels. It's a movie that was in development for 5 or 6 years before it got released, but feels very strangely 2021 in terms of the cultural attitude at the times. And there are ways in which, for instance, the characters respond to the treatment of the hearing impaired, like the attitude to cochlear implants and things like that seems so lazy and Gen Z about it, that seems so, there's an app for that kind of mentality that I thought was quite refreshing. But it is all about the central performances more than anything else, clearly.
Right. And Van, I would really like you to comment on the raw emotions that Ruben is going through, making the audience feel every bit of anger and frustration while you watch the movie.
Well, of course, because more than simply being a straight drama about, this musician who's, losing his hearing, which in and of itself is, a tragic story. That's more, you can play that as being steeped in irony. There's the element of tragedy to it. What they've got here as well is an addiction drama element in the Ruben, who's obviously played by Riz Ahmed, is also a recovering addict, and that this loss of hearing, this loss of his purpose as he sees, his creativity and his music is his soul and his purpose, for being as he sees it, and to lose that, of course, sends him straight back, into the throes of addiction. That becomes an intrinsic part of his treatment for it, in dealing with the loss of hearing as well as trying to fight his own existing demons.
Right. And what do you think of Lou's character? Was it supporting enough for Ruben, or she made some mean choices for herself? What is your take on that?
Well, this is Olivia Cook as the female lead. She's Ruben's partner, and to be fair, her role within this movie is, I think, simply to be there to take the brunt of his frustration. That is, she is as supportive as anyone I think can be in that scenario, and I would argue, goes above and beyond. That she makes a concerted effort, but it is his frustration that gets unloaded upon her. And, there comes a natural point for her to depart, the story for brief periods that you think, okay, this makes sense because this has been done in service of the greater good. This is not a selfish character. This is not what you would historically call a Jenny Gump or anything like that. This is quite a relatively selfless character, played very well by Olivia Cooke, who, famously filled in for Dakota Johnson. This was at one point going to be Dakota Johnson in a role, but that was during an earlier iteration when it's going to be directed by its co-writer, in which Matthias Schoenaerts was going to be taking the Reuben role.
Right. Van, the sound editing is what makes the movie a real deal. What are your thoughts on that? I mean, we can talk about the camera work, the acting and whatnot, but sound editing is something that actually made you feel that how a deaf person actually goes through.
I would argue that if you're going to have an Oscar-winning, Oscar-nominated movie about a metal drummer losing his hearing, you darn well better get nominated at the very least for something in the sound categories. And of course, this won that category. And I think it won Best Editing and Best Sound. Of course, it got nominated for Best Picture and for Best Actor as well. And I would argue, there's serious merits for it in every category. But the sound design, of course, is intrinsic. It's such an integral part of this movie. You view this film through Reuben's perspective, and I would argue that there's only one other film I can think of, which of all the things is a 2011 Ewan McGregor science fiction film called Perfect Sense, I believe, that's ever, I think, simulated this sensation for me. As someone who doesn't suffer from any kind of hearing impairment, to get this kind of simulation is that's eye-opening, that's groundbreaking. That's to make you sit and go, okay, this is something I would never know how to simulate that experience within my own mind, what that must be like. I would have no facsimile, no parable for that. And I think the way they've done it is phenomenal.
Right. And Van, what do you think of the pseudo-realism, shaky camera work throughout the movie?
I like that. I quite like that. So this is Damien Marder's a relatively inexperienced director who co-wrote this when it was originally a Derek Chanfrance project. So when that was the Dakota Johnson, Matthias Schoenaerts version, very much Derek Chanfrance bit of casting. But when co-writer Damien Marder took this over, and it's now his movie he's directing, to be honest with you, I think his style that kind of suits it better. It needs a ruggedness. It's about a metal drummer. It can't be too organized and tidy and clean. It's about a metal drummer. It's about an opera singer. You can make it in static, locked frames by all means, but you want this to be over the guy's shoulder. You want the bead of sweat to be flying. You want the loose, completely discoherent experience that he's going through. You want to be in that mindset. When he's feeling as lost as he does, you don't want to feel like your feet are firmly planted on the ground. Viewing it as the audience member, you want to feel exactly as immersed in that as you can. And I think they do it very, very well.
Right. And Van, the movie is slow-paced, of course, but you at any point feel that it just, feels like dragged or boring at any point?
I can genuinely say not. I can say not the case. In fact, I will say, because I do have a gripe with it. I don't think it's a perfect film. In fact, quite the opposite of what you're saying. I don't think it's that it drags. I think it tries to do too much within a limited 2-hour runtime. I think it's exactly 2 hours on the nose. I would argue that its story does too much. There is too much story for what needs to be a relatively, stripped back tale. I think if I have a real gripe with it, though, I think it's yet another movie that treats metal music as something that you grow out of. That you move on. This is where you learn to do all your stuff, and then you move on to your proper genre afterwards. And I think that, as a fan of metal, I think I would have hoped we were a little bit past that culturally. It feels quite snotty. It's something that I would take umbrage with. But I do think the film is good enough to overcome it.
Right. And then, on the other hand, some critics said that this was a major slap on the healthcare system of America as well. Do you agree to that?
Well, I'll be really honest, I had no idea what a cochlear implant cost until I saw this movie. So yes, I think everyone's being had. But the healthcare system, in particular the US healthcare system in general here, I don't think comes under as much scrutiny as it could. I would argue that this gives it as much scrutiny as the movie Nomadland did. I think the healthcare industry has had a relatively free pass this past awards season, despite the fact that you would have assumed that they would have made for an easy mark. Now, I would guess come next awards season, which is going to be the first real awards season that's going to have movies made post-COVID or during COVID, post-COVID, I would argue that the healthcare industry is going to see a lot more focus, but that they will come out in a much better light. That I don't think we'll see a lot of criticism of the healthcare. I think hospitals, the healthcare profession, I think you'll see fine. I think the industry, the pharmaceutical industry, the corrupt politician side of it, I think you will see a lot more scrutiny there, but not so much in the hands-on. In the UK, for instance, the NHS will be bulletproof in movies for a few years now.
Right. Jack Thorne, he's the writer, and just last week he came up with a statement that disabled people are not given ample quota in the entertainment industry. So movies like these, do you think that these can be a great favor to people with disabilities, especially like this one, where people who cannot talk and sign language speakers exclusively have been brought forward and they have been given a chance to perform?
Absolutely, and one of the truly great things about Sound of Metal is its use of ASL, its use of American Sign Language. And I think Riz Ahmed, famously took 2 hours a day for 6 months to learn, which hats off to him. He's clearly a very committed performer, and he always has been, to be fair. I think the inclusion here is tremendous. Representation genuinely does matter, as anyone of any non-Caucasian ethnicity will tell you. Yes, representation absolutely matters, and it's best to get as authentic as you can on that, as well as many people, particularly when it comes to disability, have seen in recent years. There is the famous story of R.J. Mitty, I think his surname was, from Breaking Bad, very much bringing this issue onto a larger platform. I think 3 or 4 years ago now, shortly after the end of Breaking Bad, that this was something we needed to get on board with. Just this year, for instance, there was this past year there was a comedy called Come As You Are, which starred a cast of disabled actors in a story about disabled actors on a road trip, and it was genuinely brilliant. If you've never seen it, please absolutely check out Come As You Are. But you do look at a film like Come As You Are and think that this is something where the inclusion element this isn't even a debate. You have to, on this one, open up your casting to people who could experience this in the only way that you can. This is not something that I think you can fake. This is not something that any degree of research, I think, could really give you the completely profound insights. It would be ridiculous to think that you could. So no, absolutely.
True. Van, thank you very much indeed. It was a great review. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
That was Van Connor reviewing Sound of Metal. And that is it for today's episode. We hope you liked it. Don't forget to share your feedback on the social media link mentioned down below. We'll see you next time. Until then, take care and goodbye.